Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the Yo Video Games podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 450 episodes.
I think this is 470,
Yes,
and it's a
470.
holiday episode. But yeah, thank you. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/EOVideoGames podcast. Dude of the week is Luis M. Sorry, I wrote it down here. But thank
I
you,
remembered
Luis. Appreciate you. You're getting the Christmas episode. And I mean,
Yeah, so this is Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Whenever
I think, I think it comes out Christmas Day. I think it technically comes out Christmas Day, but we'll release it Christmas Eve or something as like a little special.
It's the Christmas episode.
Now, if you don't celebrate Christmas, I don't know what you're doing with your Wednesday, but it's a good time to like.
Apologies to my Jehovah's Witnesses.
So, wait, do Jehovah's Witnesses not? I thought it was birthdays they don't celebrate.
They definitely don't celebrate birthdays. I don't think they celebrate any holidays.
That is rough to be a kid Jehovah's Witness.
I had a student once who was Jehovah's Witness, and I'm pretty sure it was every holiday and his birthday.
Gotta kind of be rough to be, especially in a commercialized holiday where it's just like you just see it.
Then again, you probably cut through the BS easier, so you see all the markings.
True, yeah.
Just to let you all know, not Christmas, but Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving got moved to the Thursday. It is the third Thursday of November by FDR. So Thanksgiving being when it is actually used to be the fourth, but now it's the third. Why? Because it was better for the holidays, shopping season. It was to encourage people to buy more money, spend more money to get us out of this funk we're in. So,
look, if you want to learn some shit about FDR, this is a little tidbit. He got along better with Stalin than he did Churchill.
Let us sink in.
They were they notoriously bullied Churchill at every meeting all three of them were at.
Yeah, but still knew better than to openly hand him over the secrets to nuclear technology, even though they still stole it anyways.
No, I mean FDR was much more shrewd and prudent than people. Like people now will be like, "Oh, FDR, he was like the people's president." No, he was still a shrewd politician and also kind of a dick by some accounts. I mean, Churchill has like diary entries, confused and hurt as to why he got mean girled by FDR and Marshal Stalin. Like it's pretty if I can't remember if it's in the book or if it's in one of the documentaries, but it's so when we were visiting London, we went to like the Churchill museum that's in the bunker, and you can see like his velvet onesies that he used to wear and shit.
Yeah.
And there's like all this like him and FDR were the best friends stuff. And then I was reading the book, or we were watching one of them, and they were like reading his diary entries from those meetings, and there's so much of just like Churchill being confused and upset at FDR because FDR would like crack jokes at Churchill's expense, and him and Stalin would like laugh their asses off at Churchill getting mad. And one of them was about how many German officers they should kill. By the way, Churchill was all like, we should not execute German officers just for being German officers. And Stalin was like, we should kill 50,000 German officers to send a fucking message. And FDR was like, okay, well, why don't we compromise? We'll just kill 49,000. And Churchill was like red in the face, like blustering, like, how dare you suggest this? It's dishonorable. And him and Stalin are laughing their asses off, basically, because they're all like, whatever, they're Nazis. Like, that's pretty dark stuff.
Pretty dark, but it's also of the subject matter, I mean,
well, yeah, if you're going to talk about killing 50,000 officers, I guess Nazis are the most palatable, but still, terrible aside. But yeah, FDR, very shrewd man, probably did change Thanksgiving purely for shopping reasons.
Yeah, he did.
It was the fourth Thursday of the month,
or was it Thursday and then became the?
When is Canadian Thanksgiving? When do the sweet Canadians do their Thanksgiving? I think it's earlier. I think it's in like October.
What are you talking about? It's like every Monday. They're always so polite, thanking you all the time.
How dare you? I know many rude Canadians. Actually, one Canadian that I saw almost get into a fight in Thailand. He lost a bet while drinking fresh beer in Vietnam and had to go around Bangkok when they got back to Thailand. Had to go around Bangkok and buy the full outfit of um, Zach Galifianakis wears in Hangover with the purse and everything. Got a
Wow.
haircut, did the whole thing, lost the bet, and then walked around being an oblivious douchebag to everyone that he met, and almost got into a fight with a bunch of Thai people at a bar. So there are dickhead Canadians out there, and we're big fans. Big fans of the dickhead
Just not
thing.
Keanu.
Yeah, well, Keanu's a sweetheart. All this to say, thank you, Luis. You're probably not Canadian, but we appreciate you all the same. So for Christmas episode, you'd think we got to do something Christmassy themed. Now, I was originally like, we should do like the ultimate gift. What gift should you give? But then you had an expansion. You're like, no, let's get wackier. You want to explain
Well,
the topic?
so like Christmas miracles, I guess. Usually I'm always downplaying it, saying, yeah, it's not gonna happen, that won't happen, this. But we kind of had basically a Christmas miracle happen at the Game Awards because
Several, really.
Okami 2 is happening, and it's being directed by Kamiya, and Clovers is being resurrected. Like Capcom is funding all the people who left Clover to form Platinum, now left Platinum, so they're literally bringing Clovers, as it's plural now. Clovers is back, and they're making Okami 2. Nobody would bingo that. That'd be on nobody's bingo card. Like
Yeah,
that is a straight up Christmas miracle. So, in the season of mirror in the time of miracles or whatever, um, now is like the time. I think we really go crazy. We go blue sky. We talk about what is the Christmas miracles we would like to see next year happen, since
okay.
apparently miracles can't happen.
I do love a miracle, you know, and I think I've said in the past, like my pie in the sky thing would be like a return of Ape Escape, or which
See,
I think we made a joke that
Team Asobi making Ape Escape 4 or 5 or whatever they left it.
that would be one of my favorite levels in Astrobot is the Ape Escape level where you're basically just doing Ape Escape.
It must be one of the most
Um,
confusing levels for a lot of people because I don't think that franchise was mega popular, and the level is such a love letter because it has Ape Escape people on the dev team,
yeah,
who worked on the
I
original. So it's like this is a fully realized, because everyone will understand the God of War, everyone will understand the Horizon.
Uncharted level, which was
Sure,
also great.
Uncharted, sure, yeah, and Loco Roco was the only other sort of like wild one, but PSP was super popular in Japan at least.
Well,
What a fun, also a really fun level too.
it got me to get to like I guess I had never brought up Ape Escape to my wife. Like I don't know why. I guess that just doesn't come up. But when I was playing it, she was like, "Oh, that's cute, like little monkeys running around." I was like, "They're apes. How dare you? Those are apes."
They have no tails; they're apes.
Ape Escape. And it's just me saying Ape Escape several times in a row. And she was like, I get it. They're escaped apes. And I was like, no, the game Ape Escape. She was like, mm. And so that was, we're getting a divorce. I don't know how to soften that blow. She left me because I am obsessed with Ape Escape. But no, I would like, I feel like that's an obvious pie in the sky. Like if we could get it, if Ape Escape came back, Team Asobi Ape Escape, that would be like,
It seems like
yes.
they want to do it. You play the level, and it's just kind of like, yeah, we just made a whole ass Ape Escape level.
Well,
It's
it
like,
seems like Team Asobi wants to do a lot of fun things, and Sony let them sneak it in here. Like Astrobot feels like Sony didn't actually sign off on it.
yeah,
Like it feels like they snuck it in, you know?
yeah. Because I mean, the thing was, it had a 3-year development cycle, and they started right after they did Astro's Playroom, which came out 4 years ago, whatever,
Right.
right? With the system launch, and So yeah, so they just spent the next 3-ish years just making a follow-up.
And it did gangbusters.
It's critically killed it. It did okay, although I mean, it was as we've kind of learned even recently. Yesterday, as we're recording, actually more than yesterday. When we're recording this, the November numbers came out, and it didn't bump it really. Even well, we haven't gotten the Game Awards bump yet, which would be December's, so winning Game Awards. But like,
But I thought by
I'm gonna say his
Piscatella,
name, Piscatella is saying like Game Awards tend to not bump games that much, a very slight bump, very tiny bump. It doesn't usually like change the course of a game's sales projections.
because
So
nobody cares about the Game Awards, somebody should tell. Sorry, I don't.
whoever was
I don't
asking.
want to harp. I don't want to harp on
Well, not
that
him,
guy
but whoever
anymore.
was asking, because he was telling it straight, like, no, they don't cause bumps.
Well,
You know?
no, I was just saying, like, if you're gonna cry at the TGAs, like, there's just no reason. TGAs don't matter, man. Um, but no, Matt Piscatella, if you're interested in like game numbers, which is just raw data, and all he does is break down raw data. Like, I actually don't know exactly what he does in the industry specifically.
He
I
might
know
just
that
be
he's
an industry analyst, that's his job.
and has been forever, but he often will now on Blue Sky, but was on Twitter for a long time. Just posting numbers and like raw data and pointing out
And people get mad at him for that. People are like,
people get
that's why.
pissed. Like he deals with some weird harassment. Well, I don't know about now that he's switched
Oh,
over,
yeah,
but
that's
like,
big reason he left. He's
yeah,
like,
it's like, how do you get all he's doing is saying this game sold this much and what that might mean? Like, what do you, I don't know. I thought he said that given what they expected for Astrobot, like it did really well.
well, yeah, because I don't think the game had a huge budget, didn't have a long development cycle. So that's why I kind of think Sony was probably hands off. Like
And
not
so it turned
entirely,
out
but
good.
like generally speaking, I don't think there was a ton of, because before it was the Jim Ryan era, and
Right.
him, oh, it's so hard to fly from California to Britain and back, every week or whatever. I'm like, oh, on your private jet, you poor baby. And the person who took over is Herman Holst, who's from Guerrilla Games, and they're Denmark, or I can't remember where, somewhere in Europe. So it's like these are just not people who probably go to Japan that much, because the PlayStation headquarters is now in California, and I'm not saying they don't do anything. I'm just saying that like there probably is more. There's probably a lot more oversight and hands-on Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica and even Insomniac and Guerrilla Games in particular than there is on, say, Team Asobi, strictly because we've seen it. Like we saw Naughty Dog canceled Last of Us Factions because Bungie, in Washington State, were like, you don't have a 10-year game here, and Sony panicked and said, well, forget it then,
Ugh.
right? So,
Ugh.
which I mean, to this day, like Bungie's doing pretty poorly for themselves right now, but they're still right. They probably didn't have a 10-year game. There probably isn't, and there
Right.
probably
It
is no
shouldn't
such.
have mattered.
The thing is, there's probably no such thing as a 10-year game plan game.
This is
Like you
dumb.
can try to prepare and whatever everything for 10 years. It ain't gonna matter, because if that game don't hit in 1 year, it don't matter how many years you had planned for it.
You know what's weird is where Naughty Dog's situated is it's on like Venice Boulevard and National in Culver City. I think that's the Naughty Dog
Andrew
studio
out
right
here
there.
doxing.
It's
I
it's
don't think it's publicly available to
yeah,
find
it
out,
is.
but anyway.
There's a big friggin' sign. Um it's where I used to work
They're in
when I
Santa
worked.
Monica. There is a ton of talent in Santa Monica. They're
Well, they're
down
not in Santa Monica. They're in Culver.
well, they're close. That
Yeah, it's
that
super close.
chunk,
It is literally walking distance to Sony
like
Entertainment Studios.
like that chunk of the area where Sony Santa Monica and Naughty Dog, and because pretty sure they were in Santa Monica at one point, um, and many other studios are, there's a big hub right there.
To be
And,
fair, you know, the Culver City office maybe didn't go through. I just know because they built where Apple was putting in their new office in Culver
mm,
City.
Yeah, I think it's near there. But I mean, like Culver City and San Monica is like walking under a freeway.
No, no,
Practice.
Jesus, it's not. No, the eastern side of Culver City, where all the studios are, and Culver Studios, like, nah. It's
Well, I mean,
like,
it's going to take you an hour to drive there because of the traffic.
yeah, but you could walk from where I'm talking about to Sony Studios, like the film studios.
Oh, the film studio.
I don't know if that's also where the game studio, like Sony
I
Entertainment
don't
Games, is or
think.
whatever. But
I don't know actually,
um,
because some of them are split around and kind of all over the place.
well, because like if they're in Santa Monica, they're probably near Third Street.
They were very close to, and you would know this, because they don't have the office there anymore. They don't exist. They were close to where Habbo was.
Oh, right, yeah. So they're on Third Street, which is like the most prestigious area to have an office in Santa Monica. But yeah, but it's just funny that Jim Ryan would not just move to California while he was CEO. Like every Englishman I've met that has had to work in California, they moved to Santa Monica. Santa Monica has like the second largest population of the English specifically. I'm not even saying from the UK, just the English specifically. The second largest population. Although I did see, and I don't know if this was a joke that that was being made, but like I did see something somewhere where like the second largest population of illegal immigrants in Santa Monica is English. It's I mean, but yeah, Jim Ryan's just like, no, I gotta fly home to London, the mega city, instead of stay next to the beach in Santa Monica.
Well, PlayStation headquarters are up in NorCal, or like northern part of mid-Cal.
Oh,
Mid,
really?
yeah, I
Oh,
think
well, then
when they officially moved the PlayStation offices, it wasn't. I could be totally wrong about this, but
Japan does love San Francisco, so
they
it's
do.
probably somewhere in San.
They do.
They really they have since the 1800s. I wish I was even remember that
No, I actually have hands-on. I know this firsthand from people who worked for companies, English or
yeah.
American branches for Japanese companies, and they were just they would they would like there was I won't even say I don't need to say the company. There was a company very well known where they had an office near San Francisco. And then they said, "Oh, we're moving the office." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's probably way too expensive to be there." No, like no, they're actually moving it
Deeper.
further into
Yeah.
the heart of San Francisco. They don't even like being a little bit out of the way. I'm like, "What?" And like, "Yeah."
I
I'm
told
like,
that story about the
"Nobody."
delegation that came from Japan. It was all the old samurai came from Japan to the United States, California specifically, in like the early 1800s or whatever. They went to San Francisco and they friggin' loved it. They thought it was the coolest place ever.
Yeah. Okay. So it's
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 like,
San. Here you go, San Mateo, and there's an LA branch as well,
well, it makes sense that there's an LA branch.
but the headquarters is San Mateo.
Interesting. Well, I could get that, I guess. I would. it- San Francisco is an interesting place. Like it's one of the older cities. And so there are parts of the city that are just like cramped and twisty and turny and foggy and are aesthetically pleasing. And then there's other parts of the city that are basically just LA in a
Yeah.
bay. And so it's just
Yes.
like a lot of concrete and stuff. So there's like these really beautiful Spanish, like one of my favorite, if not my favorite architectural style is Mission Revival. And so it's like old Santa Monica and old San Francisco have a lot of Mission Revival stuff, and it just looks great. Surrounded by modern concrete,
Yeah.
just crap.
Really ugly.
I
Just
was just, ugh. I love brick and I love like Mission Revival, and they don't build anything like
yeah,
that
but
anymore.
either way, again, I think get to your point though. It's just it kind of feels like I don't think there was a lot of people paying attention to what was going on. Because they had Astrobot VR and it
It's
well
a VR,
received.
so
It's well received. It's one of their only it's a well received VR game. How many of those they have? They had the pack-in game, Astro's Playroom. That's well received. Nobody's actually buying it, but it's well received. Whatever. And they say, hey, we're just gonna make like an expansion of this. We'll have like a turnaround, a quick turnaround. Okay, cool. whatever.
Do you? Yeah.
You do whatever you want to do, kind of thing. And lo and behold, it comes out and it's the best game of the year.
Well, it's like that's the secret, right? The secret is like be a low enough budget that you can sort of just sneak away.
Yeah.
You know, like how
You
do
know, the
you?
other thing about Astrobot, like, really kind of gets me is just how well the game runs, like how well it looks and performs. You know, like,
Yeah,
there'll be a million little things on screen at once or whatever, and the game's not having any crazy slowdown issues or anything,
and I know people were all like, "Ah, but there's loading screens," and I was like, "But the loading screens weren't like that common or obtrusive."
or that long. Like, what?
Yeah, it was just like it's just the controller flying for like maybe a second. Like I can't recall any like super long
No,
loading.
neither can I. Like, what?
I don't know. But I definitely like my favorite my favorite, you know, criticism of it is the whole Mario clone thing we talked about last time, where someone was like, it's just a Mario clone.
Yeah, and that's
It's
exactly
like, well,
what
yeah,
the
that's
director said on stage at the Game Awards.
and it's also just like that's a compliment. That's not an
Like, so he
insult.
was like, Sony didn't want me to say this, but I'm saying it anyways. It's like, we gotta thank that other company in Kyoto, without, like, yeah, doy. Like, I don't even know why Sony shouldn't have any reason to be mad. That's like sitting there and blaming like a writer going up and saying, like, I gotta, big thanks to Gene Wilder, for inspiring, me to write. And like, how dare you? Like, like John Ford really in shape, the way I make movies. Say, how dare you? That man did not work for Disney. It's like,
I vaguely remember there was like a studio head that got really pissed because like a movie that they funded or whatever that the studio made referenced a competing studio's movie, and like it was like a big deal. I feel like that was a thing in Hollywood at a certain period in time
probably
too,
was.
where it's just like it's just weird traditional don't reference the competitors, they don't exist
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
type thing. Um, okay, but give me a pie in the sky. Give me like a holy shit, this will never happen. But if it
Yeah.
did,
I have many of those personally. So it's probably
beautiful dream. Give me a beautiful dream.
oh man. Gosh, I just saw this is so common, but whatever. I just saw like the live stream and the trailer today for, Yakuza Pirate. Oh god, the game looks so good. But
I mean, it's
it'd
gonna
be
be a dumb
crazy
one.
for me if just to see Sega two things, I guess. We'll do a double. One is if some team somewhere within Sega right now, maybe they just got together someone else or themselves made a not necessarily triple A skulls and bones kind of disaster, but like a sizable chunky budget Skies of Arcadia follow up. Doesn't even have to be a direct sequel, doesn't have to be a direct
Okay,
prequel, could kind of just be in the world, an in universe, but sizable enough budget, like say Atlas or someone, make a Skies of Arcadia follow up. Like that's in universe, whether or not it's sequel, prequel, reboot, what probably not a reboot because they already did a director's cut. So I'm just saying, like, just doing that, taking the skill sets they have now and doing like, okay, the thing is, a lot of people, like, sadly, a lot of people have kind of passed away who worked on that game. Some of the producer and some of the other
it's not that
roles.
old,
No, but like, it's just weird. Um, Knowing that,
huh?
I just read about someone else who recently passed on who was on that dev team. Reiko Kodama, I know is the other one. She was a all-star producer at Sega for many years. She passed away. But anyways, like, it'd just be really cool if someone took the know-how and was like, hey, let's do something that's just colorful and just about an age of exploration again, and just because Persona's got like this whole like style, like, ooh, it's either like, oh yeah, this jazzy style, the UI is like crazy and like, in your face, and then Metaphor is kind of the same thing, but like it's like Italian opera, like you did about that, you did about that, and it's like, ooh, style, ooh, pizzazz and jazz, ooh, not pizzazz and jazz,
For
but just
people that
ooh.
can't see you, they probably imagine you're having a stroke.
That's why I'm trying to use my voice as much as possible. Just all this like like ripping this UI in your face as it looks like all these Leonardo da Vinci paintings with anime and shit. Um, maybe not something that crazy, but just something a little more just like, hey, let's just have like a really colorful, fun, looks like a 90s aesthetic
Yeah.
anime. Because here's the thing what I don't get. One Piece is so effing
Popular.
popular.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because that's the reason they don't do it. Maybe that is just the reason, because that's like a Namco deal and Sega doesn't want to look like they're making a rip off or they're trying to compete with One Piece or whatever. But like, I don't know. I feel like One Piece is its own thing, and this is Sky Pirates and whatever. So
And
I think it
Skies
would
of
be
Arcadia was such a big, like, it was already kind of
it's
like
well it's
it's
well
a
loved.
touchstone. Yeah.
So it's like to me, I'm like, I would love to see, someone tackle that, with modern day Sega. 'Cause Sega's on the up and up, I feel. Um and I think that would be fun. The other thing I think would be fun is if Sega somehow was able to get another development studio in there, probably because they're not big enough, but work with Camelot to make a proper Shining Force 4. Now, the character designer has passed away, sadly. Um, I don't remember his name offhand, but be careful when looking up his stuff. That man drew some dirty tentacle stuff. That was fun to find out. Um,
Your Google is hmm.
back in the day, I'm like, oh, because when you're young, you want an art book, like a Shining Force 3 art book, like, who's the character designer, and you look it up, like, oh, what else has he done, and like, oh, but again, that's when you're like,
Or
everyone
you're
always
like, oh,
it's one of those things where people always give shit to character designers, like, did you know this guy drew? I'm like, did you know all of them did? Like,
yeah.
someone's got
I
to make
mean,
their mark somewhere in the world.
and they're all, you got to remember is for the longest time, it's only become particularly sexy to be in this industry in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
were
So I'm not, I'm
a
not gonna,
whole lot of horny nerds
look,
back
man,
in
I'm
the
not gonna
day,
knock a guy for trying to put food on his table. Um,
or for just being horny, you know? No one gets hurt in the drawing of tentacles. There is no human harm. It's just
You know
that
what
guy
though?
and his
This one
frame.
day we'll have the correlation between all the eaten octopus and squid in Japan is all because of this weird, crazy fish, which gets people hungry for calamari. And it causes people to go out and buy more and more, and they go out and they hunt down all these more octopuses and squid, and they're eating them, Andrew. They're eating them. The drawings do hurt. It hurts the octopus and squid market.
And when they rise up to overthrow us because we have destroyed too much of the planet and can no longer survive, I, for one, will be happy that we thinned the herd early. Okay.
But anyways, yeah, Shining Force 4, proper Shining Force 4.
Well, I mean, like, how cool would it be if Sega just suddenly made a new Sega Dreamcast or Sega console?
Ugh.
You know what I want really though is I want like I don't care if it's like a new console or what. I want a shakeup. We need a
Mm.
we need a new like when Microsoft first got involved in gaming, it was sort of like, oh, what does this really mean? Like Microsoft has all this money, they're gonna have their own console, they're gonna like it was a shakeup. It didn't pay out necessarily or pay off or become a huge change to the industry until
I
a
think a lot.
decade later. But
Yeah, well, I think also Microsoft got involved a little too late, almost in a way. Like if Microsoft went full tilt into the game industry in 1990 as opposed to 2001, things could be a lot different. Just because even by the time Microsoft got involved, and then they if you remember they abandoned the Xbox One kind of early. It was only a 4-year lifespan
yeah,
for the original Xbox, because they did that on purpose because they wanted to get ahead of the PS3, and it worked. That actually worked and paid off them early on. So, but the thing is, games got really expensive and started to take much longer to make when they decided to become a you know, big gaming industry console manufacturer.
right.
So if they jumped in 10 years earlier when it was way cheaper and took way less time to publish a video game with the amount of money they still had in 1990, man, things would be a lot different.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, there's got to be somebody that's poised to be able to do something similar now.
Well, I think the thing is that you got to come to this realization that money, just having money won't be enough. You have to like what you really have to do to I think to make waves at this point is you got to be someone who can you can get studios kind of on your side in a way. Like if Microsoft wanted to be a truly disruptive force in the industry, they'll never do it. But if they wanted to truly be a disruptive force in the industry, all they would have to do is not shut down studios and not lay off people.
They don't know how.
If Microsoft was known as the job security haven for the video game industry, if that was them, I think in enough given a few years, maybe even 5, I think they would have been able to topple even Sony to an extent. If it was known that like, okay, well, if you regardless of what happens, if you worked for under Microsoft, game studios, you're not getting laid off. They've got enough money to soften the blow. They'll just fund your next project anyways. Like it's okay, you can make a mistake because you'll be better when you come back next time. If that was a truth, if that was a guarantee, right? So many companies would have left. So many people would have left other development studios, other publishers, just to go work at Microsoft.
Well, what's weird is the opportunity was there for like Amazon to be that, because Amazon had all that investor money that they could just burn. They didn't have to turn
Yeah.
a profit. Like
But
they
here's
could
the
have
thing,
just
both Amazon and Microsoft did the same thing. They immediately started cutting shit when, oh well, this thing just blow up right away. We'll just start
right.
getting rid of everyone. It's like,
No, right. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that's I'm saying like, yeah, Amazon could have.
yeah, no, they absolutely could have. Like Microsoft could have. Microsoft and Amazon and others like could have. Apple even. It's just kind of like the thing that would actually have the thing that would have won them their console war is the thing they don't want to do,
right.
which
Yeah.
is okay.
Spend money.
Not everything you put out is going to be a hit. Sometimes you'll suck some shit on on a release, and but that's knowledge learned for the next go around, right? No, no, cut it, get rid of it. Like apply the leeches, just so
Applied. That's medieval.
the bloodletting
Um,
must begin now, kind of thing.
yeah, I mean, but if we're going pie in the sky, like I'm just gonna say it's Sega. Like Sega coming back with like a Dreamcast 2 or something would be
Here's my question. Would you want it to be a home console or a portable?
me personally portable, but I would want it to be like okay. I don't want to. The Switch is great. I don't really have any complaints about the Switch outside of I sort of don't consider it that portable,
Mhm.
right? Because I don't take a backpack everywhere.
Right.
I wish there was still like a DS.
Pocket portables.
Yeah, like I wish there was still like a PSP or a DS or a Vita sized. I wish that was still a thing.
Mm.
I don't I realize that like Nintendo's not going to do it because it would just be stealing money from the Switch and vice versa. But like it's why when you hear Sony being like, "Oh, we're going to get back into that." Like part of me is like, are they or are they going to just make their own version of the Rogue, or
Absolutely. That's
yeah,
exactly what they're doing.
they're going to do a ROG Ally or they're going to do, they're just going to make a Sony version of that. Um I think if somebody could get back into the pocket, like that would be Sega would be perfect for it because Sega has enough of its own games or enough of its own uh development teams that they could get like you could get a
The
Yakuza game on a handheld.
Yeah, the
It's not gonna
weird
be
thing is like you say Vita and PSP, which is still kind of big because when I think pocket portable, I'm thinking like Game Boy Color, Game Boy Pocket, maybe Game Boy Advance.
but
That
a
really
PSP
tiny.
but like a PSP isn't that much bigger than a Game Boy Color.
It's longer, but I mean, it's not what a Switch is. It's not what a
Right. Yeah.
Steam Deck is.
And like
It's
we know for a fact that you can get pretty powerful, uh components in that size because phones are as big as a PSP now.
right. But then therein lies the problem: is portables from back in the day were cheap. Like
Right.
Game Boy was $90 when it launched in '89. And
Well, yeah, the original Game Boy was 99, right?
89.
It was 89. I mean,
Like
but
they got
$89
it
in the
just under
80s
100.
was
So it was just under $100, right? And yeah, even Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, I don't think they were much less than 100,
and the
120 or
games
something.
were like $30 a piece, weren't they?
Right, 20 to 30. So the thing is that Sony famously said we're taking handheld gaming out of the out of the ghetto, or out of the gutter. I forget which, if it
Did
was
they
ghetto or
really say
gutter.
that?
Yes, they did.
Jesus.
So
Okay.
oh man, there's a treasure trove of I could pull up many things with the PSP. Just the PSP, man. Like, we're taking handheld gaming out of the gutter with the PlayStation Portable. Should I mention the European campaign for the white model of the PSP? Um,
Okay.
if you want to look up those images, those very racially charged images, in
Great
Europe
job. Uh,
that they put on billboards.
Europe doesn't have race problems.
No.
Um, but no, like
It's a nut you can take outside.
um,
Or
like
how about when they tried to create an influencer for the PSP, to have all Maddie wants is a PSP, other than Maddie or something like that. So they made a kid they tried to make him become an influencer before influencers were much of a thing, and tried to make a viral thing go big, and have everyone hope this one kid could get a PSP for Christmas, help him get a PSP. And it was a Sony plant. They had to apologize for it. There's a lot of things about PSP that were just like, whoa,
but
marketing.
do you remember how cool it was to just be able to have like a 3DS or a DS in your pocket, and everyone had one in the party? You go to, like, you're going to sit in line for a movie, or you're going to go to,
Here's my thing is, I remember distinctly the first year of the PSP out. Like, a lot of people had PSPs. It was like, oh yeah, PSP. PSP died after a year, and then it was just DSs.
yeah. Well, the DS was just like, I had a PSP, and yeah, I want to say like maybe a year in when the DS really got going.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing, because I feel like too many of the PSP people who jumped on they just liked console gaming. Like, I just like console gaming in general, and they didn't want to stick around for other
Well, the thing that
PSP
was,
games.
the PSP was a sexy looking handheld
It was.
compared to the DS. The original DS is this blocky, clunky, ugly
Yeah, I
looking.
have.
Uh,
No, I don't have it near me, but yeah, it's
but
clunky.
playing games on the DS was quite a bit more comfortable than playing on the PSP.
Especially eventually with like the shoulder buttons, where your hands are kind of like,
Curving, and yeah,
yeah,
like the
like
buttons are
to hit that
thin.
one. But anyways, yeah. So you're saying you would like to see, like, hey, a new Sega portable, maybe
Or
something
just
closer
like
to
a
like
new
Viva
portable
Sling.
in general would
I
be
mean,
cool.
if you look at something like there's the AYN Odin Mini, which is about the size of a Vita, and it's chunky enough to run
Yeah,
a
you were
lot of
telling me that
games.
that's really cool.
Yeah, and so they could do it. The only sort of, and I'm like, again, we're talking pie in the sky, so I guess price shouldn't really be part of the discussion. Um, I'm just saying, like, the only reason it's not happening is just because they would have to charge, hundreds of dollars in today's market, and especially with
But
tomorrow's
if it
tariffs.
was a pocket portable, no, tomorrow's, if it was a pocket portable that cost as much as a Switch, you know, the offering is different than a Switch, you know,
Mhm.
so it's not going to be as powerful as a Switch probably. Well, actually, now it could probably be as
It's crazy.
powerful as, it could be as powerful as a Switch, maybe not a Switch 2. But my point is like, we know that $300 ish area is an acceptable area for a gaming console.
Yeah, we also saw, I forget, there was some report that came out. I saw it reported by a couple different people that basically were saying, um, they don't think in 4 years from now, they don't think there's going to be room for two consoles on the market. I forget what the name of the organization was. It was the DFC Intelligence, wherever that is. But yeah, they're looking at next gen because they're projecting Nintendo's gonna. It's funny because they'll still be allowing it, but next gen systems, Nintendo's will be first, and then Sony and Microsoft will come out in 27. The new system, which almost seems almost too close in a way, but whatever. And
It's
they're just predicting that Microsoft's lost too much mind share and market share, and they're not even trying. They're trying to like advertise Xboxes on anything. So they're just like, yeah, they don't think there's going to be room for 3 consoles on the market. There's just going to be room for Nintendo and one other. And a part of me was wondering is like, is this saying because also PC gaming is sort of like just becoming more and more prevalent?
yeah, well, yes, PC gaming is becoming more and more prevalent, but console gaming, I think, is always going to be the superior way to play a game in terms of
It's
just
going to be
like
the easier.
comfort.
It's always the easier.
Yeah, it's always going to be, it's just going to be the way. And so, will there be a point in time where there's really only one home console and Nintendo is the portable king? I think for a short period that would be true, but I think there's always going to be some sort of competitor. Someone's
Well, here's
always going to see an opportunity.
well, I think, and everyone downplays this now because everyone lives in the now, right? But I truly do think that the future is a lot more unstable for Sony than appears right now. That's just from sort of talking to people within the industry who make video games and stuff. Um,
Right, but also look at Sony, the mother company is not having a good time right now.
right.
It's
Yeah.
like just PlayStation is doing well. And even then, PlayStation's doing well doesn't include the PS5 isn't doing like insane numbers. Not yet. I mean,
Well, here's
it's
the
not
thing. It's
bad. I'm not
doing.
trying to
It's
say like
actually
it's
doing okay.
yeah, it's not bad, but it's not like it's doing well enough to float everything that other Sony
Right.
is doing, right?
No, no,
It's
no,
not like,
not at all.
you
Exactly.
know,
Well, the other thing too is here's the other thing. Hardware is fine for Sony right now. Software is not. Like just what they're selling straight up. Like Helldivers was an early boom, right?
yeah,
But it's done okay. It's done pretty well. But it's like Astrobot sold like 2-3 million.
which is great
Um,
for Astrobot, but not
that's great.
necessarily great for Sony. Yeah.
They
It
they sold like 25,000 copies of Concord before just shutting the whole thing down.
that's still so heartbreaking. I mean, like, even though I don't care about that game, like, in terms of buying it, God, that's so heartbreaking.
Right.
Imagine being a producer or something. God, that
So
would
here's the
be
thing. It's like the things that sold well were Spider-Man 2 because it was always going to sell well. I mean, it's a good game, but and God, like the thing is like your Horizon 2, you had Horizon 2, your God of War,
right.
Ragnarok, and Spider-Man 2. You had your part twos to all your big PS4 games. The last one is Ghost, please, Yote, yay. But here's what I'm getting at here is that they don't have time because of how expensive and long these games are to make a part 3 for any of these games in the life of a PS5.
Right.
Cross-gen PS5, PS6, sure, but I'm just saying that like for the next 3 years, Sony doesn't have a God of War, it doesn't have a Last of Us, it doesn't have a Horizon, it doesn't have a Spider-Man. It doesn't. Maybe it has Venom. It has Wolverine, maybe. Um, and maybe Wolverine can do well. I assume Wolverine will do it. But here's the thing: Spider-Man is still the most popular, recognized superhero in the world. Believe it or not.
Well,
I
because
always find that
isn't
funny
it?
when I see that.
Well, it's because of Latin America, right?
Could be,
Spider Man's huge in Latin America.
yeah, because it's like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman are the 3 most recognized superheroes, and
Well,
Spider-Man
and
someone,
Spider Man had that huge push in the 90s.
yeah.
There was like a
So
huge push for Spider Man in the 90s.
so Wolverine, I love Wolverine. I love Wolverine more than Spider-Man as a character personally.
Right.
Or just I just love X-Men more. I love X-Men in general more than Spider-Man. Sue me, whatever. Spider-Verse movies are phenomenal. I love them. But here's
Right,
the
I
thing.
get it, but I'm also not head over
My
heels for
point is
Spider-Man.
that I don't know that Wolverine is going to sell Spider-Man numbers. I think Wolverine's going to sell in the 5 to 7 million range, which is great. But it's not going to sell like 10 million in a month like Spider-Man 2 did,
Right.
especially if it's rated M. Because then you lose a huge chunk of like impulse family purchases,
Well, I think it's going to be rated teen, probably
which
just
I
because
think would be so disappointing if it is.
Right, yeah, but Marvel feeds on disappointment. Um,
Dang.
no, I hmm. The thing is like I'm not sure that Sony is. I don't think PlayStation's in trouble necessarily. I think that
I don't think they're in trouble. I just don't think their house is quite as in order as people think it is.
but I could see Sony like going bankrupt and selling PlayStation off,
Mm,
like mother company
spinning it
Sony
off, it's into its own like independent business division.
could. I could see that. You never really know because one, I haven't dug into any numbers on Sony specifically. I just know that they're not doing particularly healthy, but you never really know until it happens just how extreme or how extremely bad. Nobody knew Lehman Brothers was doing bad until 2008 and they shut down. You know, like literally, there were executives at Lehman Brothers who came in not having no idea that Lehman Brothers was closed. You know, it's like sometimes you just don't know. PlayStation is probably it's got to be as dominant as it's ever been in terms of like branding. Like everybody knows what
Yeah,
PlayStation is.
they're in a really good spot brand wise, recognition wise, loyalty wise even. But
So first party games, yeah, I don't exactly know because they put themselves in the business of tentpole gaming.
yeah.
Part of it I think is because maybe PlayStation was influenced by Sony's film side,
Mhm.
maybe.
God,
You
I'd
don't
hope
know how
not.
much.
They that's been a whole disaster on its own.
Yeah, but look at how much game. Look, Jeff is a or Jeff Keighley's a symptom, not you know, the cause. He's upset. Yeah, his dad invented IMAX, so he's been around film his whole life. But for the last 20 years, gaming has been chasing Hollywood prestige, talent, recognition,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Well, you that means you don't really know how much overlap really is between Sony Film and Sony Music and Sony PlayStation. There's a good chance because again, Santa Monica is not that far from where Sony Film
Mhm.
Studios is. It's just not that far. I I guess you could speculate that there's overlap there that maybe, you know, they got into the tentpole business because the Sony film tentpole business was where it was. I don't know. Um, I'm literally talking tales from my butthole here, but my point is like they put themselves in a corner with their first party.
Right, because they chased the big AAA experience so
Yeah, hell yeah, and
hard.
they do great at
They
it. Like
do, but the thing
they're
is, you're talking about the games that take the longest and cost the most money to make.
right. So there is an opening here for my little sweet little dream of somebody coming in and like having a slate of 30 to 50 million dollar games on a console, handheld or otherwise, that fills that gap because there is a gap. Like
Yeah,
we know for a fact, looking at the numbers and looking at the games of the last the last 7 years, there's nothing in that, you know, 30 to 50 million dollars. Same with movies, actually, really. There's nothing in that 30 to 50 to 70 million dollar range. Like somebody could sneak in there and really kill it. I mean, Nintendo technically does, right? Nintendo is the guy in that
that's
range.
that's the thing. Yeah, you're sitting there with like, here's a WarioWare, here's another Mario Party. You
Right.
ain't
I
spend
guess
more than 30 to 50 on these.
right. I guess yeah, Nintendo is that guy. But there is a gap there for this. There is a position there where like I could get my pie in the sky. There could be something else. The reason I want this is like there isn't really competition anymore.
Yeah, well, I think yeah. What I feel like you're really saying here too is that you want there to be more than just these little fiefdoms that exist independently of each other at the
Right,
moment.
and, like, there's good idea like, especially developers, we know for a fact that they have good idea. Look at Naughty Dog. I know you're not a Naughty Dog fan per se, but, like, I'm a Naughty Dog fan. Intergalactic is a good idea.
I
It's
think
not
Intergalactic is a
necessarily.
fantastic idea.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
that I think the pitch, the elevator pitch for Intergalactic is phenomenal.
right.
Personally, I'm like,
So
yeah, that's a video game.
it's not like it's not like there aren't great ideas there. It's just that right now there's basically two people that make those decisions on what gets greenlit in the AAA space, and to a certain extent in the AA space. Like, we're not seeing real competition. We're not seeing, you know, Kamiya left Platinum because Platinum wants to continue pursuing the thing that's not doing well right now. Like, the idea people are completely, they have no one to turn to. There's no competition among the decision makers. There's an opportunity there for, like, somebody. I think Sega is maybe in a position, maybe, to find a way to capitalize on that. They don't have any money to put into a console to, like, to start
Right.
doing
So they're doing the next best thing, which is basically getting their game IPs back. Like their COO is like, hey, we got all these IPs. We should do something with them. You know.
right. I mean, there could be a world in the future where Sega dominates again. Could be. I don't know
I'd love it.
exactly. Yeah, that would be great, especially because they have some of our childhood favorite IP just sort of sitting in the
And
wings.
and and to be frank, I feel like you're gonna hate me for this, but I feel like the ideas of Sega's classic IPs are stronger than Microsoft's classic IPs. Okay. I'm like Golden Axe,
Well,
Streets of Rage, Shining Force, Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi. I could go on and on between the Genesis, Saturn, Last Bronx, whatever fighters make. That is stronger than Azuric, Rise of the Pantheon, Nightcaster, Voodoo Vince, Blinks the Time Sweeper,
I don't know why you think I would be upset about that.
Brute Force.
I didn't buy an original Xbox.
I'm just so I'm just
I
saying, like,
got one.
brute force. I'm like, even in I hate to do this. I no hate here, but like,
Brute Force is a
I'm just
masterpiece.
gonna leave it off because it is a cool idea. It just didn't execute well, or find its audience. But like nuts and bolts, let's switch it to nuts and bolts. Like nuts and bolts is like nuts and bolts is IP assassination, not really. But anyways, all those other games, Azuric, Nightcaster, Voodoo Vince, Blinks, Brute Force, all these other Xbox games I just listed, Kaktu Kojin or whatever that got canceled technically. None of those games on its face are like, yeah, what a great video game, what a great time. I'm like, no, they're all just derivative of other things that
Right.
came
Oh,
before.
I completely agree. I think one of the reasons that Sega's so dominant in its early IP, or even not, maybe not even its earliest IP, but even several years after its early IP, they came up in a world where they were competing in arcades. They were literally compete. They had to communicate the idea of the game quickly enough to get you to want to put a quarter in to play it.
Right.
That is
Exactly.
that's an ultimate gauntlet, and to get it, like, you don't have to really pitch. Let's any Metal Slug. Let's say Metal Slug as you're going into an Amici. I'm saying Metal Slug because that's the one that was in the pizza place that I went to, not because it's a Sega game. But it's like, you don't have to have the pitch. You see exactly what's happening in 15 seconds, and you know whether or not you're going to spend a quarter on it. Crazy Taxi sells you real fast. I'm blanking on the skateboarding. I don't know if it was a Sega one, but there was like a
Top
skate.
Skater.
Yeah, was that it? Where you stand on the
Yeah.
skateboard and
Yeah.
yeah, okay, yes, instantly sold on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, those ideas sell super fast because they're strong both visually and instantly recognizable what they are. I think all of that could be true on a portable. Like Crazy Taxi
Yeah.
actually is sort of a great game for a portable too, because you
Yeah.
can just jump in, play a couple rounds, and get out.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that there's any way it can happen. You told me to give you some pie in the sky. I'm giving you pie in the sky out the ass.
Yeah, I would
There's
love it.
loads of pies falling out of my sky
Yeah,
butthole.
yeah, that'd be great. I would actually love that just because I think, and I do hope Sega's IPs just come back in general because I do think Sega people. It's easy to think now when they've been on a winning streak for a while, and just obviously our audience came from a lot of you came from fighting game community, and it's easy to think Capcom has the greatest stable of IPs. I argue Sega did. I argue peak Sega from Genesis to Dreamcast, if you encompass all of that, was an even greater stable of IPs and games than even Capcom. So,
I am torn on that because Capcom has a lot of my favorites.
oh, they do. They're great. They're
But there
they're
was a
they're
slump. There
fantastic.
was like a
I'm
10-year
just
period there where Capcom was like straight trash. There was
yeah, there were
there
the dark
was.
days of Capcom, but I'm just saying that like Capcom's fantastic. It really is. It's got a great stable of IPs. It does. I'm saying when you look at the amount of IPs that Sega had, and it's let's say 10 to 12 year run, just even 10 year, well, even more. Well, if you not even including the 80s, but damn, if you include the 80s, you're crazy if you think Sega didn't have one of the greatest stable of IPs out there. But just
And
everything
their
Sega
consoles
did.
looked cooler.
Yeah, everything Sega
They had the
did
cooler
from
looking
in the
consoles.
90s, Genesis to Dreamcast, like, Genesis came out 87, I know, but just look at that, or 89, whatever it was. Sega had so many great IPs. Like you said, they had to sell you immediately on many of them. So,
You know what? That's a good pie in the sky. Like actual arcades coming back. Like I
mhm.
want an actual arcade. There was an arcade. We both don't live in that town anymore, but in Newhall they had that arcade that just recently. It was a pizzeria, bar, and arcade, but they wouldn't allow. They were only open a few nights a week from like 8 p.m. to like 3 a.m. and you could never go in there unless you were 21 or over, and then they shut down because they weren't having any business. And everybody's like, well, yeah, you're on Main Street, and everything was coming back, and people wanted to hang out on Main Street, and you were the one place that like 90% of the people there couldn't hang out in. A proper arcade in that spot would have killed it. You know what I'm talking about? It's called like Victory Pizza.
Yeah,
Oh,
I never
darn.
went in there though.
I went in there. I went in there 2 times. It's cool little. It was. It's gone now, but it was a cool little spot. But also, it was just like they would like blast super loud music. It was a bar, like a tiny corner where you could buy pizza that was under a hot light, and then like most of the games were 20 years old or more. Like they were. I mean, actually, most of the games were like 35 or 40 years old, probably. They had a very large pinball selection. Um, which out here, by the way, all the breweries have loads of pinball. Like, it's actually kind of cool. Like, it makes me feel like I'm
Go
like,
figure.
yeah, I don't know, pinball just like the jam down here. I don't know.
I don't know. It's barcades are they're not my preferred way to play an arcade.
Yeah, I'm not saying I want a barcade. I don't mind barcades, but I'm saying like a proper true arcade coming back. Like having that would be a cool pie in the sky. Give me that gift.
Mhm.
God, I have seen what you've done for other people.
The
Just
thing is, I still
like a
feel like there's some way to make it work. I just don't know how to tap into it necessarily because I feel like I'm old, but like I feel like the Utes crave to have somewhere to hang out
Yeah, no,
and
you got to
just
put it in a
be.
you have to put it in a place that isn't necessarily car dependent to do anything else.
Hmm,
Like malls used to be the place to hang out because it was one giant indoor area that you could walk around and,
yeah,
yeah, window shop, but like you could eat, you could go to the arcade, you could go to the movies, and then you'd wander around in between there. They then
yeah,
started to make it so that malls weren't a cool place to hang out for teens, and that killed arcades, which then killed movie theaters, and then killed food courts. And then they were like, "Well, how come no one shops here anymore?" Well, nobody wants to be here. Um, I think in this city out here. I think it's called like Pell City. There's this crazy movie theater that's like it's a bowling alley, giant arcade, movie theater, and then one like the last section of the building is a bar. But 3/4 of the building, there's no alcohol, there's nothing necessary, like, kids can just be
Mm.
hanging out. And then a very clear distinction where, like, yes, adults can come in here, but, like, nobody drinks at the I think at the bowling alley they drink, but, like, in the arcade, no alcohol, that kinda thing. So, like, it is very clearly a place that people can just spend time doing whatever. That is the only place I've seen like that in maybe 20 years. Like what, Mount Asia? Forever, forever, whatever the hell it's called now, whoever owns it now. But like every place I've seen like that in the last 20 years is like you have to drive to it. It's secluded. There's a big parking lot surrounding it.
Well,
What
so
you
was
need,
so was the roller rink that you just said, like
yeah.
you couldn't really. I mean, I think there was a bus stop, but it was at the bottom of a hill and behind a railroad track.
Oh,
To
the Victory Pizza place? Well, that was on Main Street.
no, the roller rink.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, none of these places were necessarily walkable, but
Bro, I remember being like 15 or something, and I got yelled at because like my mom was picking me and my best friend up in a van, and she said, "Well, come," because this roller rink was at the top of a hill, and she's like, "Well, come out and meet me at the bottom of the hill. I don't want to drive all the way up there." And, I'm like, okay. So me and my best friend, like the time came, it was like 3 o'clock, like, or whatever time it was the afternoon. We're like, all right, let's go walk down the hill there. Manager of the place followed us out and yelled at us and got mad and made us go all the way back up and wait inside, which then got me in trouble because I was like, it's getting double because like they didn't want any strange teens walking around the side of the building. And I was like,
oh, those teens. Mischievous
no,
teens.
like what it was the weirdest thing ever. And I'm like, yeah, no wonder that place didn't survive. And like
Yeah.
you didn't you went out of your way to make sure people didn't walk to your place. They had to drive.
Well, it's like a family fun arcade for the longest time for the OGs that remember one of the best arcades ever to do it. That parking lot area that one, it was on the corner of two big main streets in the valley, but like there was a restaurant in like a Circuit City, which became a Korean church. That
Yes.
Circuit City, and they didn't even change the branding. They just changed it to
Nope.
Korean sign, and all the Circuit City stuff was the same. It just
Yeah, the
amazing.
big battery thing was still there.
Yeah, it was just they just had like Korean and a cross. Um, and the inside was crazy because it's still Circuit City on the inside. I went in there once.
Really?
Um,
Oh God.
yeah, like I mean, there's like an altar and like and like there's reverence and stuff, but then there's also like you look at the walls and you're like, that's still Circuit City's paint and everything. Like still all it's still the colors and everything. And the lighting, all still Circuit City lighting. But like that spot that it sat there, like you could get dropped off there, you could hang out there, and you could find food, and you didn't have to go wandering
Yeah.
all over the place. Tilt or any of the arcades were located in spots where you were there for another reason, maybe, but you could hang out at that arcade until you were going to go do that other thing or after, or like you don't have to attach a bar to an arcade to make an arcade good. You just have to put the arcade or make it possible for an arcade to be in a location where there's foot
So I
traffic.
have and the reason I have a little bit of I don't know how this is now because this was over 10 years ago, but from what I had heard, laws and lawmakers and everyone had basically made it a point within LA, all of LA, to never approve arcades anywhere.
I hadn't
Um,
heard that. I just the way that
oh yeah, this is a thing. This was a big thing. This was a big problem for a lot of like arcades. It actually did get shut down, and why they couldn't relocate and they weren't able to relocate or whatever. LA basically considered arcades magnets for drug dealing.
huh.
So you could never ever open an arcade
Well, where
in
are you
LA.
supposed to get your drugs if not in an arcade?
7-Eleven, like every other city.
Market? I don't understand. Um,
So yeah,
my-
well, there's actually this was 10 years ago. There was pretty much a staunch, straight up like LA city proper, and then even the surrounding areas within the county all had a pretty much a staunch no arcade
Jeez.
mandate.
I know that the reason why they died out in malls is because the way mall rent works is you
Yeah,
have a basic amount that you must pay, and then you pay 30% of your income over it.
yeah.
Like they charge you a percentage of your income, and if you don't make that amount to hit that threshold, you still have to pay that minimum,
Have you
which can be
been
really
in
high.
a mall recently?
Not well, actually, no, yeah, just I went to they're still alive here.
Bro,
It's
I
crazy.
went I went to our mall, and like
Dead.
everything from the, if you know where the Macy's was, to the
Yeah,
JC Penney, on one whole side, um this store bought every single downstairs store. So from Macy's to JC Penney, which is was at one point half the mall, on the bottom floor on one side,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they knocked out all the walls from every store in between there, and they just sell like Frankenstein's tchotchke crap. Like, you just wander in there, and it's just like the most bare bones, just stuff like on foldable tables kind of thing,
Huh.
and whatever racks. And it's just, it's like, oh, here's like a foam Lakers poster or something, or here's like just like the most basic,
When's the
swap meets.
last time you saw Sparrows?
Less than a week ago.
Really? I hadn't seen one in years, and then we were at a mall out here, and it was an outdoor, so like the common areas were all outdoor,
Mm.
but it was a mall, and it had like a big restaurant bar in one section and a big food court near the center, and then like areas to just sit and hang out, like fountains and fire pits and stuff to just hang out. It was packed.
That
Uh,
ain't like that out here.
I know. I know, it's weird. It's just like out here, people are still alive. There's kids riding bikes places. Like, I can't remember the last time I saw a pack of kids just like ride it. It makes me feel like old man, like just
Well, it was weird. I don't know, a few weeks ago, I went to where I grew up, and I took a walk around the old neighborhood, and I actually saw kids hanging out on like scooters and bikes. And I was very pleased,
oh, because
because
you
the
grew up
last
near
time I
that.
did that,
Yeah.
there was no one. It was just like it was a ghost town.
Yeah. Well, in like my parents' neighborhood and stuff, it's there. No one's younger than their age. I think one family moved in at one point, like a year ago,
Mm.
and had a baby and got annoyed that like everywhere they went. Let me paint you one little picture before we finish up with like one more pie in the sky thing. One time I was at my parents' place and I went walking my dog, and there's just this guy driving around. He's in his like 60s or 70s, just driving around, and I must have run into him doing like this mile loop around my parents' wider neighborhood couple times, and then finally I was just like, I said, "Hey, you looking for some place?" And he was like, "No, I'm bored." This is a 70-year-old guy, retired, and just was just in his truck driving around his neighborhood for a while because he had nothing to do. Like
Now
it's
that's a guy who should get into video games.
that's it. Well, like when I think about my grandfather being retired, he played like golf 3 times a week. He was out playing like cards. They did card nights at their house. They were constantly like in contact with people. My parents have been retired for like 2 or 3 years, and like they don't do anything. My dad has watched probably everything that's been on Netflix and calls me 4 times a day to just like chat. And I'm like, Get a hobby, any hobby. Like, why did you retire if you don't have anything to do?"
See, my dad loves retirement, but he's also they're the exact same way, but my dad like relishes it.
Which, fair. I'm just saying, like,
He doesn't call me at all though, but
but they also have nothing to do or nowhere to go.
yeah,
like,
same
like my
deal.
dad used to love. Maybe that's what the pinball machines are for. Like, get the olds out there. Uh, Another pie in the sky that I'm gonna end it on, because I think I've said this before, but my last pie in the sky that I still just sort of really want. I want a Resident Evil game where you play as Mike after the crash in like RE4. He
Yeah.
crashes, and so he's got his little pilot revolver that all the pilots have, right? They all carry like a revolver or pistol or whatever. But now he's, in the same area that Leon was half a day ago. He's crashed in the castle area, but there's even less resources, and everyone's even
Well,
more
he
pissed
crashed
off.
on the island, which blew up. So this is still going to be hard. But you can say he washed up, I guess, on somewhere else.
Yeah, we can retcon a little bit, but still, that'd be a sort of a crazy survival horror.
Reminds me of a fanfic that I remember Mike talked about a long time ago of a hunk in RE4. Like he was hired by Wesker or whoever to go get the sample because they didn't trust Ada, right?
Yeah,
And the idea was that he was betraying the other two. So the areas he would repeat would be changed from the devastation caused or whatever. And there'd be new stuff. They go to new areas. And I remember they thought up this boss called El Diablo, which was a giant Las Plagas bat. And I
that's
was like,
cool.
you know what? This could, yeah, I'm like, that could absolutely work.
I'm
So
maybe
when
the only person in the all of the RE fandom that doesn't think Hunk is that cool. He's
you
fine.
still though, your idea just reminds me of that, like playing a sort of character who's going through the aftermath
Yeah,
of what Leon does.
all the mistakes and things that Leon did, left it behind and stuff. It's like, just imagine, like, pilots have like this 22 caliber like collapsible rifle for
Mhm.
survival, and it comes in like a little box. And so it's like, Crash, you have your little revolver, you're in your flight suit,
Yeah.
and then you've got this like survival kit. So you have presumably a knife and maybe a 22 rifle.
If anything, it could have been like a really cool like DLC or something for the game.
Right? It just would have been like a cool, like, and it's extra survival horror. Like, I'm down with that. That would be a cool pie in the sky. And the thing is like, yeah, okay, in 5 we definitely know that pilot died. Like, we see him very dead. But that would also be a cool, like, imagine we have a game where it's like he crashes, and then the whole purpose of visiting him is trying to catch up with Chris.
Yeah.
But he's like in a different area, and so like he's not going through the same spots as Chris. He's just trying to meet Chris
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a location of the game. Like, that would
Yeah. It's
be,
kind of it literally what Separate Ways is kind of was sort of supposed to be in a way, but like
yeah.
they kind of almost turned Ada too much into like a superhero main character
Well,
both
they
times.
they made her like 007. Also, they give her kind of superpowers, kind of ish.
No, but she has she has a hook shot that doesn't.
Yeah, she got like a hook shot. She
She
could
has a
do
hook
like
shot
some
that doesn't
crazy
obey the
jumps.
laws of physics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, neither does her dress. So, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about Ada. Ada's cool as hell, but
Yeah.
it's, and I'm also not trying to rile up Hunk fans, because God, I know the RE fans. We can get riled. We can get so riled.
At least with
Um,
Hunk fans, the one thing you can say about Hunk fans is that it's for, or at least in Hunk's favor, is that Hunk's not really been utilized much in the games,
no,
like
he's
beyond
just
what his
also,
initial thing was for, right? So I dislike Ada more than Hunk, not
I
because,
don't dislike either. I
well,
just don't think Hunk is that insanely cool. He's just like, he has been prescribed superhuman coolness
yeah, well, mystery,
because he
mystery
had
does
like,
that,
yeah,
man.
he
It's
had
the
two
Boba. It is
sentences.
100% the Boba Fett factor. Um,
Yes, but also we both agree, like, Boba Fett looks cool, but otherwise he's not that cool.
no, but like Ada kind of annoys me just because Capcom doesn't want to do anything with her.
Yeah, I
Like
do think
they
that.
don't want to commit to anything. Like the character just kind of shows up, has the exact same sort of role, and
Well, she does a lot more in 6.
she does stuff. But I'm just saying, like her character wise, I'm like, so what is Ada? She's a mysterious spy lady in
Yep.
every game, in 2 and in 4 and
Mhm.
6, and she will be if she shows up in another game. Like they're not going to do anything with her because they're afraid to. It's like aging one of their female characters terrifies them.
They won't do it. If we're gonna stay on the pie in the sky RE stuff, another Outbreak
I
would
mean, that's a good
be,
one.
that
It's
would be
just a good,
real great.
just all these weird attempts at multiplayer RE, and just how about you
Just make Outbreak.
just make Outbreak, like a remake or Bree, one of the
Do it better.
yeah, and then mine's obvious. Um my last one is, with all these people having seemingly left platinum entirely, um, whether it's Kenji Saito or Takahashi Tara, or well, I guess Yusuke Hashimoto's at Capcom proper. I would love it if one of them got picked up by Monolith. They would have to move from Osaka to Tokyo, which is probably why it's not going to happen. But the idea being like, take them, take maybe some of their best men that they, worked with, and be like, all right, we want to do a game with our map system and our storyline, and our music, but we want to change the
Zero
battle system.
combat.
We want to make it a real time combat. Can you give us a real time combat, and we'll take all our
Okay.
core strengths and match them with your core strengths, and we're gonna make a really cool. So you just get the best of both worlds. That's my pie in the sky. That's what I want.
I think that's a pretty good one. I also think that that's maybe more likely than my RE ones.
Yeah,
It's more likely that that could happen because Monolith Soft is they're kind of with it. They're kind of on it.
yeah, and they're hiring, but it's like I don't know. I don't know who knows what the future holds. But again, like these guys are in Osaka, so they're probably just gonna stay with going back. They're probably just gonna go back to work with Capcom, just because.
Maybe. I don't really know what the, you know, Osaka versus Tokyo lifestyle is like. I imagine more space, like in
Osaka's
Osaka.
way more laid back.
Oh yeah.
Way more laid back and easygoing than Tokyo. That's from what I've heard there. But then again, again, Monolith seems to like they're not trying to be that company in Tokyo. But either way, it's funny how these Japanese developers tend to stay in their city, whether it's Kyoto, Osaka, or Tokyo, right? Whereas all the poor bastards in America,
Have
every
to
time they get
move.
laid
Yeah.
off, they're moving cross country all the time, every time, and get laid off again.
It's not great.
And like these people couldn't even move the distance from San Francisco to LA.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's not a slight against them necessarily, but it's also kind of like, man, I mean, if I lived in Japan and it was kind of like, here's a great company, but they're San Francisco distance away, I'd be like, all right, we got bullet trains.
yeah, but also the quality of life, argument there. If it
True, because I
you're
don't.
significantly reducing your quality of life moving to
Yeah,
Tokyo,
because
like
that's a
screw all that.
big. Yeah, you're onto something there. Because I actually don't know, like the standard of living of an apartment or a house or whatever, just living in Tokyo versus living in Osaka might be a world of difference where it's like it don't matter. It don't matter, man. Like it's like you're gonna come home to misery in Tokyo, which you may not come home. You may come home to peace and quiet in Osaka. So that could be a huge differentiator.
I won't be able to say until I myself visit Japan, but I won't be able to do that until I have like a month free because I want to go for like a month.
You want to go for a month?
Yeah, I want to go and like
Oh, dude,
see a
soak it in.
large swath. Yeah. Uh, I mean, that's what I did in Thailand. I really love Thailand, just being able to like go and stay in places and areas. But granted, Thailand is way more tourist friendly than Japan, so I don't
Is it
know.
like all of it, or just which?
Well, I mean, I imagine one, people in Thailand are extremely friendly.
Hmm.
Like really, like you know, if you insult a Thai, you're going to fight every Thai in the room because, like, it takes a lot. You have to be trying to insult a Thai. Like they're just sort of culturally friendly people. At least in my experience, and at the time that I went, maybe that's different now. This is 10 years ago, but um, yeah, no, we there's a lot more tourism from Europe, especially. Um, I don't think we ran into many Americans while we were there, but
That's really interesting.
yeah. So there's a big tourist industry, and so there's a lot of English signs and
Hmm.
like
Oh, there's
English.
plenty of English stuff in Tokyo. I don't know about the rest of the country though.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the rest of the country though, is where it's probably like where you're going to go slow and kind of.
You know, Nagoya is beautiful.
Well, a lot of
That
it's
is that
beautiful.
was that was what I learned this trip. Nagoya is beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't even ask how Nadia was. It a trip like for her. Is this her first time out of country? Yeah.
No, just first time to Japan.
Oh, first time Japan. Okay, I was gonna say that's a crazy first time out of the country. Where are we gonna go? We're gonna go to Japan. On that note, though, we have some patrons to thank. Once again, Merry Christmas to those of you that celebrate. To those of you who don't, still happy holidays. We appreciate you. Thank you for listening. And our patrons for this episode, our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Cybernite, Skernami, Kroy35, Hyperviper 89, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes. We will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.